Hi YouTube, I'm Inace, this is Squeak Code, and this is part 2 to the OCDaction conference summary. If you haven't seen part 1, then definitely click here and check it out. This is the afternoon session. Straight after lunch we had Lynne Drummond on what's new in OCD. First of all, she spoke about what we already know about OCD. I learnt that the first treatment was available only 50 years ago. This was clomipramine, or anafranil, which was the first tricyclic antidepressant which was licensed for OCD, and it was around the same time that ERP, or exposure and response prevention, was developed. Before then, people with OCD had nothing. Today we also know that SSRIs and a few other medications also work in treating OCD, and we know that there's a genetic basis to it, or it's quite likely for there to be, but also it's subject to environmental factors as well. However, what these are specifically is still unknown. So the new research into OCD, which as far as I understand is currently unpublished or still in trials, which saddens my scientific side because I would really like to read more about this. These are, first of all, exploring the role of glutamate. Most medications so far affect serotonin and dopamine levels, but there is evidence to suggest that glutamate might be involved in OCD as well. Another line of research is going to be exploring the role of oxytocin, which is also known as the love hormone because it's the hormone that's released when we feel loved and cared for. It is thought that oxytocin might bind to DNA in some way, preventing the expression of certain genes, which may lead to OCD or to its onset. And finally, there was also mention of inflammation and allergies and its link to OCD. You may or may not be familiar with PANDAS, which is the sudden onset of OCD or other neurological symptoms following a strep throat or a throat infection, usually in children. And it's not actually due to the bacteria themselves, but due to the antibodies the body generates, which attack some areas of the brain, causing OCD and the other symptoms. I think there's going to be a study about how particular microbiomes affect the possibility of developing mental illness. Afterwards, there was another set of breakup sessions, and I chose How to Support Someone with OCD by Lynne Drummond. The reason I chose this topic is because it's one of the questions I am asked the most on my channel, and I thought it would be a good source of advice to provide in a future video. I'm not going to go through all of the points because many were covered in a very interesting discussion, but the two main points I'd say to take home are, first of all, look after yourself and establish some ground rules that have to be met by the person with OCD. You can't force someone to have treatment, you can only be encouraging. However, you have to know what your rights are and what you will tolerate and not tolerate, and you have to make that be very clear. The second message is to understand OCD very well. This can be hard if you don't have it yourself, but I do have videos that explain very much what the anxiety cycle is like. But understanding OCD will help to know which behaviours of yours might be encouraging the OCD and which ones are actually truly supporting the person. Afterwards, there was a Q&A session and there was a huge variety of questions. The very first one was, can OCD be cured and only managed? And I think this one is still greatly open for debate, depending on what you consider to be cured and what you consider to be just managed. I asked, what advice would you give for someone who's on a long waiting list for psychological treatment or is still waiting for the medication to have effect? And I was told that ideally one would optimise medication, which is a good crutch whilst waiting for psychological treatment. But the other option is also to be very well psychoeducated, so you might be able to perform CBT and ERP activities by yourself, and also to understand what you might be going through. It was also asked whether OCD gets progressively worse as you become elderly. And there's no firm response on this. As far as I know, OCD isn't degenerative or progressive. There are many questions on OCD in prisons. For instance, the prevalence of OCD in prisons is no more higher than you would find in the normal population. There are also quite a few questions on OCD and advocacy and rights, and I think there was also a separate Q&A session, but again, I can't split myself in half, so I could only go to one. And finally, we had Shaun, another inspirational, fantastic speaker, who told the story of what was an extremely severe case of OCD. Apparently he categorised as one of the most severe in the UK, and he's come an incredibly long way since then, so definitely gives a lot of hope for all of us. And that was it. If there was anything to criticise about the conference, I would say the name tags were missing, and I think more information on tic disorders and OCD together. I have Tourette's, so of course this is a topic that really interests me, but people with tic disorders generally have OCD or obsessive compulsive symptoms, and many people with childhood onset OCD will have a link with tic disorders. But otherwise, absolutely fantastic. I'm so grateful that I was invited to go, and I hope this video was as interesting to you as the whole day was to me. As always, if you're interested in seeing more videos, then subscribe or like the Facebook page, and if you have any questions, feel free to write them down below or shoot me an email at ocdapolitic@gmail.com. All the information will be in the description box. Thank you so much for watching.